Hi, Jeremy Cordeaux in the Court of Public Opinion. I'm just on air here to let you know that we'll be live streaming the Court of Public Opinion every Friday between 9 o'clock and 12 on jeremycordeaux.com. Please join us. We'd love to have you.
Before kids, we would complain about lack of sleep, but little did most of us know that this was not true. I say most because there are a few who have babies who sleep well, and they smugly observe the rest of us as we struggle through our days, pouring mugs of coffee into our body, hoping to jar it awake with caffeine. We try not to fall asleep at the dinner table and avoid late nights because of the repercussions the next day. As a society with children, we're focused on our sleep and our child's sleep. From the minute our children are born, it becomes a huge topic of conversation that never ends, whether it's about the parent or the child's sleep. There are nights you could swear neither you or your child have slept a wink. This in turn creates great stress, fatigue, and at times despair. Every minute, hour of sleep becomes part of your daily conversation, and sleep can become an obsession. My first child was premature and in hospital for 7 weeks, and when he got home, all I wanted to do was hold him. I was just glad to have him with me. I didn't want to hear him crying. When he got older, we tried what was called controlled crying back then. I tried many times, but Paul and I just couldn't do it. Fortunately for me, I wasn't working at the time, so I just got up whenever our babies cried. Neither of them slept through the night until about 2.5 years of age, and I felt like I was always jet-lagged, slightly out of sync, forgetful, and, of course, tired. But do you know what? I don't regret any of it. If I had my time again, I would probably do the same thing, because it felt right for me as a parent. I really have no problems past the age of 3, and at the end of the day, they sleep like babies now at 28 and 30. Now, this might not gel for you as a parent, and you probably have had a very different experience. A friend of mine, their first 2 children were great sleepers, and then she had her 3rd child. Her 3rd child was a nightmare. She couldn't get her to sleep no matter what she tried. She confessed to me that she'd always looked at me and thought there must be something wrong with what I was doing, because I couldn't get my children to sleep because hers slept so well. She had judged me. She apologized for being so judgmental. She said, "I feel terrible. Honestly, I thought I was a better parent than you, so please accept my apologies." It didn't really matter to me. I really didn't know, and I really didn't care. Here's the most important thing to remember as a parent. If you're okay and you're coping, then it has nothing to do with anyone else. Too often we feel judged by others and allow the feeling of being judged to get in the way. On that note, do not judge others either. You don't know what their story is. If someone asks for support, listen. Give advice if they ask for it, but don't expect them to take it. Sometimes all sleep-deprived people need is an ear and a hug. We're all unique individuals, and you can do it your way. I'm Kate Mason, and welcome to Parenting and Personalities. This is a podcast that connects you to the ones you care about the most. Dr. Chris Winter is an internationally recognised sleep medicine specialist, as well as a board-certified neurologist. His first book, The Sleep Solution, Why Your Sleep is Broken and How to Fix It, was praised by New York Magazine as one of the best 7 books on sleep ever written. He's a highly sought-after speaker and consultant for professional sports organisations, businesses and large corporations. His recent book, The Rested Child, Why Your Tired, Wired or Irritable Child Might Have a Sleep Disorder, identifies the signs and symptoms of the most common sleep disorders affecting children today. Hi Chris, now your book The Sleep Solution was very successful, so what were your reasons for writing your following book, The Rested Child, about children and sleep issues?
Yeah, I won't bore you with the details, but The Sleep Solution was sort of an accident the way it came about. I had always felt like, there's some really good sleep books out there and new ones coming all the time. I always felt like the space of sleep as it relates to young people, from, cradle to college is what I would always say. It was sort of missing. There's great books about how to get your baby to take a nap and sleep through the night and get them on a schedule. But, it was sort of like once they graduated those infant years, it was sort of like, well, you did it. There's never going to be any more problems with your kid's sleep. And I think that those years are often incredibly critical and important. And so I wanted to write a book that sort of spanned that time period and let parents who were interested know that there's a lot of sleep problems that happen during this time. And you're often being told there's something else. Your child's depressed or your child has attention problems, when a lot of times these are just underdiagnosed or undiagnosed sleep disorders. So I wanted parents to have a book that they could read and say, well, this is interesting, but does not apply to my kid. Or, oh my God, that is my kid. That he's describing them perfectly. And I've never even been told that maybe sleep could be an issue or given the option to do a sleep study. So I just felt like, I'd spent years trying to get doctors and pediatricians to be a little bit more proactive about it. And I was like, well, the hell with that. I was going to go straight to the parents and write a book for them. And so I was really fortunate to be able to do that.
And like you say, I was listening to somebody who talks about health and wellness, and they were talking about that when they came out to be a doctor, they looked to see which they apparently got accepted into 20 colleges, which is pretty amazing. But he said he was looking for the one that had the nutrition in his degree, and there were none. And nutrition is so important.
Yeah.
And you were talking about pediatricians and having sleep as part of their study, and that's pretty minimal. So that when, say, someone does go to a pediatrician, sleep is not necessarily their speciality, or they're possibly not looking for it. So you might end up with a different diagnosis because it isn't their speciality in that sense.
Yeah, and that's an interesting perspective for somebody, and it's a very mature perspective in the sense that I probably would have chosen my medical school based upon which one gives me a stethoscope first, or the coolest white jacket, or whatever. But as you kind of go through it, you do realize, wow, we spent 4 years in medical school and got virtually no education on sleep, nutrition, menopause, like stuff that
massive.
I mean, we got a lot of big I mean, it was like parasitic bowel infections if you're like exploring in kind of
Africa,
rain. Yeah, exactly. Which, hey, listen, I'm not minimizing it.
No,
God bless Jimmy
no.
Carter, who just turned 99 in his eradication of guinea worm, and this is good stuff.
Amazing.
I mean, wow, he's changing lives. But for little Chris, who's just a doctor in Charlottesville, Virginia, who doesn't have that kind of imagination or talent, like, I need to be able to help the people that walk through the door. So it's kind of like if somebody said reverse engineer a medical school curriculum, I think what I'd probably do is just sit at the front of a primary care doctor's office as people walk in. I'd be like, hey, do you mind telling me why you're here?
Yes.
My foot hurts, or I can't sleep, or I'm having hot flashes. And I would just have a little clipboard, and I would go back to the medical school and say, well, here are the things that people seem to want to know about. Maybe those could be the focal points, and we can talk about guinea worm on a Saturday afternoon for 30 minutes or something, because, anyway, no, I think that person was very wise. There's not a lot of great sleep education out there.
No. And so therefore your book is extremely valuable in that sense, because, even the fact that you go through it and, we talk about, as a society, we focus on our sleep, and the minute that child is born, oh my goodness, we're focused on sleep, as you say, for the rest of that time. However, as sleep goes on and you talk about your child's sleep identity, and I love this because this is true. We actually give ourselves an identity of what kind of sleeper we are too. Like I'm a really bad sleeper. Rarely do I hear I'm a great sleeper. Most of the time you hear people complaining. So can you tell me about how we plant seeds of sleep identity in our children when they're young? Because I just think that's very interesting.
I'm glad you do. I do too. It's not just sleep, for sure.
It's everything.
But sure. So, let's think about your kids and their academics, your kids and their athletic abilities, and your kids and their sleep. From my perspective, and I'm certainly no superstar parent, the first two, we're planting all kinds of seeds, and they're generally positive and wildly unrealistic. Like, you're not going to be your kid's not going to be a professional baseball player, but it's awesome. You keep telling him that he is, just because he grabbed the bat at the right end kind of thing. So, and that's sort of part of the, everybody's a winner. Everybody gets a ribbon maybe, or that's fine. I mean,
which is destroying society right now.
Well, and it could be that as well too, right? Because you don't know how to deal with loss.
No.
What do you mean I didn't get into college or medical school? And what do you mean I'm a great person? I was president of this. And that. So,
that's right. Yeah, I'm 5'1", and you said I was going to be a great basketballer. What happened?
Right. What happened? So, but what's funny is the place where we should be building people up, but we just destroy kids sometimes is their sleep. And I was, laughing. There'll be a parent will come in with their 2 kids, and they'll say right off the bat, well, I'm here because of Kevin, who's sitting there with his iPad, playing it and kind of oblivious to everything. Kevin's my great sleeper. Kate, she's been a nightmare, terrible sleeper since she was born, and she's tearing my marriage apart, and she's the, Christ reincarnated, Satan, Antichrist reincarnated. I mean, it's just terrible. And Kate's sitting there listening. Like, you would never say, even if Kate were not the most scholastically inclined child, you would never say, well, Kevin's my studious one. Kate, dumb as dirt. Just stupid. Like, wildly stupid, Dr. Winter. We don't even know what to do about it. Like, you would never, but people, and what's happening is, no, Kate, it just takes her a while to fall asleep because she's really interested in reading her Magic Treehouse books or Harry Potter, whatever she's doing, or you've got her going to bed way earlier than she needs to, or a million other things, but you're making her feel really badly about it. Or you're telling them terrible things. You're going to, Kate, if you don't get to sleep, you're going to get sick. You're going to get COVID. And she's thinking, oh my God, Grandma got COVID and died. So like in her mind, if I don't get to sleep now, I'm going to die like Grandma and have that terrible funeral situation that was going on a few months ago. Like it was this, so that's the kind of things we inadvertently do in the name of helping them be good sleepers. Like, and it's all coming from a place of love. I'm sure I'm making fun of it a little bit, but yeah. So, building people up like, hey, Kate, you're having trouble falling asleep. No problem. That's what happens when you're really excited about a book. Once you read a few more chapters, since you're not sleepy, it's all going to work out. Like that's the message you like concerned. I'm hearing you, Kate. But I'm going to redirect that to a positive message and not one of, if I catch you in that bedroom with your flashlight and that book in your bed, I'm grounding you for a week. Well, that's not helping anybody sleep. So I just think we have to be very careful about those types of things, because when I see a 38-year-old patient who's struggled with sleep, it started somewhere. And that's often kinds of the places where it started, that we want to be building people up with their sleep and not making them anxious about something that's already creating a lot of anxiety in a lot of people.
Because we grew up with the fact that bedtime was 7:30, because that's another thing that is so interesting, is that who created the bedtime at 7:30, 8:30? And I mean, I guess as parents we do. But I remember Mum had 4 of us, right? And she said to me, by 7 o'clock, I was sick of all of you. So she said, I would put you down in your bedrooms, close the door, and whatever went on, she said, I didn't care as long as I could get you up the next morning. And honestly, we used to run around each other's bedrooms, jump on the bunk beds. Look, I'd lie, just like you're saying, read under the covers for hours. No one came in and told me off. We all were all woken up the next day, no matter what. Mum was pretty strong. And so I don't ever remember having problems going to sleep. But now we have these expectations. And I know that even when I was, I had my children younger, and people would tell me how their children went to sleep at a certain time and all the rest of it. And I would be quite jealous because mine didn't ever. Jack was a good sleeper, but no. And Cassie was trying very hard to sleep. I was just about to say she was a shocker. But we won't say that. We won't say that to her face. But she used to go to bed. I'd pop her in a jacket. I'd put them both down at, say, 7:30, and she would come out about 15 times for different excuses. But I worked out in the end that I put her down an hour later, and I never saw her again. It was fantastic. She actually slept at the right time. So when I read your book, I go, you know what? That was right. So
absolutely. What
can you tell us about kids and going to bed and sending the right message, and even for ourselves as adults, sending the right message that if this isn't the right time for you to sleep, what can you do?
Yeah, no, I mentioned in my book, with all of I have 3 kids, with all of them at some point, probably around when they were 6 or 7, my wife and I walked in and we kind of sat down and looked at them and said, listen, you're practically an adult now. You're 7. You can go to bed whenever you want to. We don't care. So we need you in your bedroom by a certain time. Because like you said, mom and dad, we can take so much of you and then that's it. We need you to be not in our space. So you be in your bedroom. You can come out if you see a stranger, smell smoke. Other than that, you need to stay there. But in terms of when you go to bed, you turn the light out and you're going to start to sleep. You can do that whenever you want to. Just, don't bother your brothers and sisters. So you want to read or look at some cards or draw a picture, write a poem about your great dad, whatever you want to do. You can do whatever you want to do, but you try. So it was interesting. I remember all of them got the same look. Like you just said, unlimited candy or, something like, hey, we're a family of unlimited candy now. So, but what you don't tell them is, but I'm going to get you up at the same time every day, no matter what happens, with a smile, kindly, but there's going to be that expectation there. And I don't remember that they ever really tested it, although I remember a couple of times my middle son would come out and say, I just can't, it's kind of like yours, they always called them curtain calls. I need more water. Wow, you've already drunk your entire thing of water. I need a red crayon because this one's dull. All kinds of important things that need to happen at 11:30 at night. And he was older and came out and said, I just can't sleep. And I said, why don't you just stay up all night? Read a book, stay up all night, and maybe you could write an essay for your English class about staying up all night. And I remember him looking at me like, you're a fraud. You call yourself a sleep doctor, and I'm going to expose you when I get old and bitter, or you do something mean like take the car away from me for a weekend. I will expose you as the fraud you are. But 10 minutes later, he was asleep. So mine was like, oh, that's unfortunate you're still awake. I hate that, but whatever, just read a book, stay up all night, doesn't matter. Like, I think that's what you're trying to convey, that they understand pretty quickly. In fact, that kid is at the Naval Academy now, and which is, kind of an interesting situation. And he called me after about a week of being there and said, there is no insomnia here. Because we're not allowed to even go to bed until midnight. We got so much homework to do. And then we have to be up at 6 o'clock the next morning every day. And there's no napping and tons of exercise and light outside. So everybody kind of falls in line pretty quickly. So you don't need to be militaristic about it, but having sort of some guidelines and some frameworks there. And that's one of the reasons why school is so important. It just so happened when my second book came out was right in the COVID where school disappeared for kids, which was such a strong anchor for their schedule. I even saw it in my own children. They don't have to get up. You don't start school virtually until 10, and it's a joke anyway. So versus I get up every morning at the same time. And my kids were athletes, so they did stuff in the morning, which is always fun. Get up at 5 o'clock, drive your kid to a pool or something, but it really solidifies their sleep. Like they don't want to stay up. They're tired. They want to go to sleep. I've always thought swim team's the best cure for pediatric insomnia.
It is. My husband
I'm going to write you
swim.
a prescription for a swim team. There you go. And you can take that to your local pool and you'll be fine.
And you'll all sleep because you're the parent
That's
taking
right.
them. You'll be sleeping.
Gosh,
Don't
yes.
you worry about that.
Really.
Absolutely.
Maybe during the meet.
Yes.
How much longer till my kid swims? Oh, wow. We got all the 6-year-olds to go. Okay. Well, might catch a nap here in the stands.
As long as you're not the timer. That's all. The
That's
timekeeper at the end of the pool.
Yeah,
you don't
I've
want to
been
be the
there.
timekeeper.
I like to give out the ribbons. That was always about my speed.
Yeah. Well, we own indoor swim schools. So we have,
nice.
but the best part was, how plumbers' taps always leak? Well, our kids never wanted to swim. So we never had to go to those carnivals, of which I was very pleased about. So that all ended really well for me. But when we talk about sleep problems that you were talking about, I just want to bring this one up because I love this one too. Because it's such a different take. So anyone listening, please remember that Chris is a sleep doctor. So people come to him because they can't sleep, not because they can. Because you were talking about co-sleeping and I think someone might could take offense. I wasn't sure about the person involved at the time because you were talking about co-sleeping and the negative parts of it. And she'd kind of said, well, I think you need to look at it a different way and spoke about co-sleeping not being it's a tribal thing. It's a thing from history, co-sleeping.
Sure.
However, co-sleeping, let's discuss that with babies. I'd love you to just talk about that too, but also the co-sleeping when they're older, when they come into your bedroom in the middle of the night. I love the little activities that you suggested for that. I thought that was a hoot. So could we discuss that as well? So we'll
Sure.
just talk about that for now.
Yeah, no, I think I think co-sleeping is a personal decision. I don't have an opinion about it one way or the other. In fact, I think that I could easily make the argument for co-sleeping in terms of, like you said, there's something, you look at what other animals do, there's situations, generally there's a fair amount of co-sleeping. Plus, let's be honest, being in bed with your child, just a little bundle right on your chest is not terrible. It's pretty awesome. It's just a great feeling. So, what I said in my book was, I just want people to understand that there is a little danger there with a very, very young child. And this is danger that probably every sleep clinician has seen once in their career, at least. I've seen it. In fact, I've seen it, and I wrote about it in the book, of a family member of somebody who worked for me. Got up, left the bed, husband was still in bed with the child, and rolled over and suffocated the child. It's awful. It makes me sad to say it to you. So, having the bassinet adjacent to the bed, or just kind of keeping that kind of sleeping in a bit of a safer way until they get to the point where they can control their head a little bit better and struggle and move and push or make vocalizations if you were on top of them. I mean, my wife would not leave me when I was in medical school alone with the kids. I would have to go into the nursery and sleep on the floor because she said, "You're so out of it, you won't hear them." So the babies would take stuff out of their crib and throw it on me to wake me. I would have been a very dangerous situation to a child. So,
Yes.
In terms of, so that I think as long as people are doing it safely and they feel comfortable with it, and understand the risks and are doing it right, I think it's great. I think what you're talking about becomes a different situation where maybe the co-sleeping is ended and now everybody's in their bed, or maybe that's the way you wanted it to begin with. But kind of like you were saying, there are the curtain calls, or it's not even a curtain call. It's sometimes what's worse is they've gone to bed. They're asleep. You check on them and you get in your bed and you're asleep. And then at 3:00 in the morning, like in some sort of horror movie, they're just standing over you, like not saying
And you
anything.
can feel
you
them
kind of wake
staring.
up and like, whoa, yeah, what are you doing there? And they're, oh, I can't sleep. And it was funny because I love when kids come to the clinic, and I always like to ask them, what do you think mommy or daddy or, your mommies can do for you? Do you think they have something magical that they can do to wake them up? So you ask them these questions, why do you wake them up? And it's so interesting to hear their answers. Like they get sometimes really sheepish, and I don't know. I just feel like So, I always tell people, look, you don't want to make a situation where the child is scared to come in your room because you get angry at them. Or, I had one parent say they put these little child safety things on the door backwards so they couldn't open their, I don't think that's a good idea. Again, go back to the stranger in your house or the fire. The kid could have saved your life, but they couldn't wake you up. And they left. They got out of the house and said, well, they don't want me in there. But I think, so to me, it was always about, can you create a situation where the child might wake up and think, I don't know, maybe I'd rather stay here. Maybe here is actually better than the kid. So if it's like, oh, I'm so sorry you can't sleep, hop in bed with comfortable daddy and warm mommy and it'll be great. Like that might not be great. But, I said in my book, one of the strategies that we would use is we would get up and be like, we'd welcome. Oh my God, it's so great to see you there, Cam. I was just getting ready to clean some toilets and I hate doing that by myself. And that was what one woman did. I always took my youngest son, who was the only one of my 3 kids who did that a lot, and we would go free spiders. He didn't like spiders, so we weren't scaring him with them, and it was all voluntary. I said, I can either take you back to your bed or you can come with me and we can go free some spiders. And so we'd put these headlamps on for no reason. The power in our house worked perfectly well, but just kind of created a feel and a mood. And we would go out with a little brush and a little broom pan, and we'd just find some spiders and sweep them onto the pan and just toss them out in the driveway. So they were free. Now they're not stuck in our garage with nothing to eat. And then, I'd always tuck them back in. It's like, well, I do this most nights. So if you ever want to do it again, I like having company. It's fun to do that with you. And then, suddenly you're doing it by yourself. And it always made me laugh to think about him waking up like, I don't know if I want to do that really. I was hoping maybe we'd have a food or something, but not really spider cleaning. So, but this other woman said, my daughter loves spiders. So she was into toilet cleaning, which I thought was hilarious. She's like, if my kids wake up, we clean a toilet. She said it serves two purposes. One, it deters them. Number two, and she said, I think every child should go off to college knowing how to properly clean a toilet.
So do I.
I just thought that was great. Like, she's like killing it. That's parenting, high level parenting
plus.
right there. You're doing excellent. 5 things at once right there. You're bonding, toilet cleaning procedure. You're not going to be that weird kid in college who doesn't know how to do it, and you're sleeping well. It's all happening for them.
That's cool. And your son, he's a spider freedom fighter, and obviously didn't want to do it that often.
Yeah, he's gotten over it over the years. He's a lot better about it now. He's worked on it.
That's
like
good.
My appreciation for olives. You work on it.
Because you know it's good for you. Yeah, that's right. Absolutely.
That's right.
So with your with social media, I know that you don't particularly approve of it, nor do I, but it's there and it's it's in our lives. And my niece recently, she's about 18, 19, and my brother's family are quite strict about appliances, and they all had to have their phones in the kitchen at night, sitting there all charging. And they noticed that she went to bed quite happily all the time, and they couldn't work it out. And they discovered that she'd actually got herself a second phone and was lying in bed. They caught her in bed on her second phone, texting all her friends and having a good time. So, it's just interesting what things they will go to get another device. So, they're addicted to them, and look, we are too.
Oh, 100%.
Because we're all sitting there, we're all on them. So we can't really judge to that degree. But what impact do you see on sleep and things like that with those?
It's huge, especially for young people. I think that maybe most adults have some degree of ability to balance their portfolio. Like, you look at your phone. There's nothing wrong with looking at your phone. I got a phone. I can't imagine what I would be without it. But it does have its place. I try to plug it up someplace other than where I'm at for a lot of the time of the day. I had a son who actually made a little wooden phone, put it in an iPhone case, because we have a rule: phones sleep in your kitchen. And we had the same thing happen one night. The power went off. When it came back on, 4 of the 5 phones came back on. I thought, well, one's just not plugged up, and it was just a piece of wood colored black with a Sharpie, and he was up there with his phone. So, it is addictive. Like, you're like,
good imagination.
Yeah, it's like a little drug. It's hitting dopamine in their brains, and they're lying to parents. Every night, it's like, good night, Dad. I love you, the best dad in the world, and plugging up a piece of wood and like a little birch wood in the thing. And what was great was we never punished him. We just waited for him to go on a field trip. And when he went on the field trip, we took his phone out of his bag and put the block of wood in there. So when he got on the bus with all his friends to drive to Washington, D.C., he just had a piece of wood in his phone, which is great. So to this day, that was years ago. We've never talked about it. It has never been discussed. So, yeah, I think that we have to look at these things with kids as a drug, as that level of addictiveness. And it's tough. As they get older, it becomes even tougher because things get wrapped up in it. I've heard parents, and I felt this way too. Well, I can't take the phone away because that's his link to his social outlet. Like, it's essentially, not allowing a kid to go out and play with friends like when we grew up. Okay, go out and play in the neighborhood or whatever. You're going to stay in. You can't. Their school is in it. Mom, I'm reading Where the Red Fern Grows, and it's on my computer. It's on my phone. I don't have the actual book for it. They're communicating about meetings and stuff. So it's really difficult to, back in when I was young, like, Dad just took the cord to the Nintendo and just took it. And you're like, okay, great. I've got a plastic box here that has no power and one TV in the whole house. So everybody knew what was going on with that TV. You couldn't hide it in your room or, so it's a massive, massive problem right now. And it really does affect kids' sleep. Especially if you've got kids who have phones in their bedroom and they're on silent and the light's down. I know, but it's just that presence of, what are they saying about me and what's going on and what video could I be looking at? And I even find that a lot of kids it's educational stuff. Like, I just get really interested in like Roman gods and goddesses. And I start reading about Zeus, and he was married to Hera. And they had a brother, and there was 3 gods, and the Hydra and Hercules. And so, and 3 hours later, they're doing academic-y kind of stuff and learning. but when they should be doing something else like sleeping.
So what do you say to parents who come and say, can you help me? Anything?
I think maybe. I mean, I think that it starts with...
Apart from destroy that phone.
Yeah, I mean, I think it starts with who's paying for who's in charge of that phone. And that's where it kind of becomes difficult with like a college student who maybe, I don't know, maybe they're paying for their phone now, or it just becomes a little, but for a young person, this is your phone. It's not their phone. Would you let them just cut a hole in the wall of your house because they felt like it? I mean, no, you would have rules about this because that's your property. And so I think that it really becomes sort of, creating boundaries there that are hard. Because you don't just go to somebody who's addicted to something and say, I think you should stop drinking alcohol. Oh, okay, great. They have a million reasons and justifications for it. So I think, part of it is giving kids these things later, not starting so early, but then it becomes the arms race, right?
Definitely.
You have that plan, but everybody in the second grade's got a, Apple iPhone and the latest version of one. So now, do you have the brave, can you be brave enough to be the only parent that doesn't allow your kid to, the only kid that doesn't allow drinking at the house, when the supervisor, like all this stuff. So I think that delaying the phone is important and really setting up parameters. Like we were not popular in terms of, listen, you can get on your phone if you need to, but it does not go into your bedroom. It's not going to go there. Well, I need it for an alarm clock. Well, I'll buy you an alarm clock. Oh, I need a white noise machine. I'll buy you a white noise machine. Like it just can't be there. And, my daughter accepted it. My middle son kind of did. My last son was, constantly like infiltrating things and trying to figure out ways to, turn back on the family internet when we had it shut down at 10 o'clock, all that kind of, he's like, it's like hacking into the system and like trying to like, why does the garage door keep going up and down? He's hacked into that too. Like, it's just ridiculous. So it's tough, man. They're always like 3 steps ahead of you when it comes to technology anyway. So, I think it just becomes.
And being the youngest, was he actually more into technology? Like he did?
He was. I mean, he's 19 and the next one's 22, next one's 25. So the youngest one was, but Maeve, like I was thinking about Maeve, her introductory, phones and stuff like were like little iShuffles, the little Apple, I can't remember what they were called, the little, music players.
Yes.
Yeah, iPods. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So she had the iPod, and eventually by 9th grade, it had a little color screen on it, so you could see the color of the album. Like that was so it's almost like that spanned was so much an explosion at that time that your older kids and younger kids really had different experiences sometimes. So, yeah, it was always a bigger problem for the younger one. He even wrote himself a letter one time when he went away to like a camp and said, I feel great off of this phone, like not having the phone with me. And he wrote himself like, remember this, future me, which was really poignant to me because I read my kids, I'm rooting around their diaries and letters and stuff. So I came across that one. I'm kidding, but like, I was like, wow, that's really something else. Right. It's my paper, my pencil. So I'm kidding. So, anyway. Right. But kind of sad.
But it is really interesting. And it does cause, they are the things. Look, let's face it, I can get hooked on TikTok in the middle of the night too if I'm really desperate and I can't sleep. Yes. So, it is addictive. But I think that's one of the things that as adults, like you say, we just have to deal with it as it comes along.
And I think talking about your own thing too is important. Like, hey, kids, I struggle with it too. I'm working on it too. Last week, I was averaging 3 hours on my phone. I want it to be closer to like 1.5. So we're all struggling here. So I think that's great that you can have that conversation with your kids too. It's not just you, it's me too.
Yeah. And I think sharing it really does. It doesn't necessarily, it does make it feel better. It does in that sense. Now, we don't have much time. So I just want to go sleep disorders for kids. They're out there. You've written about 100. They're often misdiagnosed because people go straight to the ADHD, straight to those kind of cures and fixes. Then, unfortunately, they are put on medications as such, which leads to sleep disorders once again in that sense.
Yes.
So what if someone thinks their child's got a sleep disorder? I actually I slept with my daughter the other day. She came over for a sleepover with her dog, and we all, Paul got booted out. We all got to sleep all together on the bed, as we do. And I noticed that she still talks in her sleep. She always did when she was little, and she's still doing it. So I couldn't remember the conversations when I woke up, because I said to her that it was quite intense what you were saying. And when does that become, because you were saying at one stage, look, sometimes if you do sleep with your children, you do find out that they're snoring or they're grinding their teeth, or, there's a whole lot of different things that you do find. So if, say, someone like Cass is still talking in her sleep, when does stuff like that become severe or a disorder? And if people are noticing things, what can they do? Because you've written what they can do before they go for medication as well, just in general, when child's showing hyperactivity and stuff like that. Sorry, that's a big question.
I think that parents' instincts are always good ones. And so if you're concerned, talking to a doctor, hey, what do you think about evaluating my child for a sleep disorder? I don't think the answer to that should ever be no. No, that's ridiculous. I mean, I think if that were the answer, I'd get another doctor. So I think it's always something that, like you said, my child talks a lot in their sleep, like not just a little, a lot. So we call that somniloquy, and we generally think of that in a young person as being sort of a normal variant, although there is a line that it crosses, meaning that it's not getting better as my child gets older. It's getting, more frequent and louder. And my youngest son spoke a lot in his sleep until his tonsils got taken out. Then he never seemed to do it again. So it probably was indicating the fact that he was having little breathing disturbances, and that when he kind of woke up, he would talk. So when you took the breathing disturbance out, the talking went away. So the talking was never the problem, but it was more of a marker probably for maybe some increased resistance to his breathing. He had really big tonsils and snored, when he was flat on his back as a young person. So I don't think those things should be ignored. So you always kind of look at them in context. How's your child doing in school? How's their mood? If it's like, no, they're growing great. Their height, they're really tall, and they seem to be flourishing, and they're doing well in school, and their behavior is outstanding, and they, in the most boring religious service, they would never fall asleep sitting there listening to the person talking, then you could let it go if you wanted to. But I think if there's any concerns, or like, wow, the talking is increasing, and also the anxiety, the talking is increasing, and seems to be having a lot more trouble with school, or nodding off. She comes home every day so exhausted that she takes a nap and then wakes up and does her homework. Yeah, I would get that person in front of a sleep specialist immediately. The worst thing that can happen, and I always tell people, is that you do a sleep study and it's normal. I mean, that's my joke. But there's no risk there to looking into it. It's like, oh, we looked into it and her sleep was amazing. Or, wow, were we surprised? And young people, man, they hide their sleep problems. They really do. Or they manifest them in very unusual ways, is probably a better way to put it.
And the thing is, too, is that with my daughter, I'm actually going to get her to do it, because she also has chronic fatigue and wakes up permanently tired. And I said to her, you know what, we've never actually thought of having a sleep study done on you, just to see whether there is something there that's impacting you and your sleep. Now, she's 28. Okay, so, we're not talking young or anything like that, but these are the things that we do need to look at, and these are the things that the people listening need to tell their friends, because they're probably not going to get it from their doctor. And like you say, because not everybody refers children or young adults onto sleep specialists. In fact, like I say, I'd never heard of it until my husband was referred to one, and that was only through a friend. So I think that the network of friendship and talking, and because everyone sits around a coffee and listens to everyone else whinge about their kids, unless you've got the perfect child, but that doesn't happen to me.
That's
right. In fact, we try not to have that person to our coffee meetup, if that's the case.
That's right. Nobody wants that one. Forget Fran.
That's right.
Fran, I'm so sorry. We forgot. We tried to call, but it was busy.
We did.
How's your
sorry
child?
About that. You were probably looking up
How's
your
the Harvard
kid.
application coming?
That's right.
That's right.
So it is really, really important. And honestly, the message that you're sending through, and I hate the idea that kids are on medication for the wrong reason. And well, it's not always going to be the wrong reason, but for reasons that possibly could be totally different.
And they can, and the medication can sometimes look like it's working.
Yes.
I mean, if your kid's sleepy and you're giving them a stimulant, that might kind of fool you over time into thinking, oh, we did it. We figured it out because this is making them feel better. But it was actually sort of accidentally making them feel better. So yeah, that's a really good point you make, I think.
So really even to question that right now, that if a child and you're listening, a child you have is on medication, to actually go back and re-question the whole process as well, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Your kid was hyperactive and you put them on a stimulant and it worked. Why do you think that? And when you start looking at it through the model of they were hyperactive because they were actually excessively sleepy. And kids tend to become hyperactive when it's almost like they're fighting sleep.
Yes.
So you're giving them a stimulant that wakes them up. And now they don't have to fight that, so they can kind of relax a little bit. So it almost has a paradoxical effect. So, if you're giving a hyperactive kid a stimulant and it's really settling them down, and, before that they seem to kind of feel tired. We all have kids. You get home from grandma's really late, 3 o'clock in the morning, and they should be sleepy, but it's 3 a.m. and they're all jumping around in their underwear and all wired up, but they're clearly tired because they're crying. They're excited and jumping around, but they're also crying, and they're kind of weird.
Yeah.
That sleepiness can manifest in strange ways. So just, re-questioning there's nothing wrong with questioning a doctor at all. Just, hey, I'm just asking, do you think maybe this could be related to sleep? And, the right answer is, well, maybe, yeah, sure. I mean, somebody says, could. If somebody asks me a question in my clinic that starts with the word could, I'm rarely going to answer no.
No.
Probably. Could you dunk a basketball, Chris? Probably not. I'm very short, but I don't know. Maybe with practice or the right gravitational phenomenon, you never know. But probably not. So I think that it's okay to question doctors. We're a team with our patients, so your kid way better than any clinician ever will. So take control of that situation.
That's cool. Great advice. Thank you so much for that. Thanks for being on today. Really loved having you with me.
My pleasure, Kate. It's been a lot of fun.
Parents now have a resource to help them uncover the root of their children's problems and, more importantly, to provide answers on how to help. I hope that our discussion about sleep, society, and our own expectations and sleep disorders will help you look at sleep in a new light, not too bright, and get as much sleep as you need. If you're having trouble sleeping or getting your child to sleep, please check out Chris's books. I can highly recommend them. They have many alternative solutions to sleep that you might not have encountered. I'm Kate Mason, and thank you for listening to Parenting and Personalities. If you've enjoyed this episode, we'd love it if you could leave a rating and a review that would help others learn about this podcast. If you're interested in finding more about you and your family's personality types, you'll find my book, Who Is This Monster or Treasure in My House, on Booktopia or Amazon. If you have an episode idea, please send a note to thepersonalitycoach@gmail.com. Many thanks to our producers at Stories and Strategies, and we'll see you next time.
Hi, Jeremy Cordeaux in the Court of Public Opinion. I'm just on air here to let you know that we'll be live streaming the Court of Public Opinion every Friday between 9 o'clock and 12 on jeremycordeaux.com. Please join us. We'd love to have you.